All right, let's get into it. We're going to be exploring a topic that so many people live through, but almost no one really talks about out loud. And that's the strange, quiet grief that comes when you have to make the choice to create distance from your family when you choose yourself.
Wow, I mean, this image just says it all, doesn't it? For anyone who's been there, that moment is so real. It's this sudden, almost shocking silence. You're in a new place with new people, and the thing you notice most is what's not there. The chaos, the tension, the noise you grew so used to. It's a really profound moment of clarity.
And that's the heart of the paradox, right? That silence. It can feel like the first deep breath you've taken in years. It's relief. But right there, in that exact same quiet moment, you can also feel this wave of loneliness. It's not one or the other, it's both, all tangled up together.
So you have to wonder, how does a family get to that point? You know, the common idea is that it's all about one big dramatic fight. But the truth is, it's usually something much quieter, and in a lot of ways, a whole lot more painful.
This is where the work of a sociologist named Carl Pellimer is so incredibly helpful. His research totally changes how we look at estrangement. What he found is that it's almost never a sudden break. Instead, it's this long, slow, painful process of pulling apart over time.
Yeah, just look at this contrast. We all imagine that cinematic blow-up, you know? The big argument, the door slam, the credits roll. But the reality that Pilmer describes is this slow erosion. It's like a rope fraying, one thread at a time. A series of small hurts, of misunderstandings, of growing distance that just builds and builds for years until there's almost nothing left holding it together.
And you can really see how it happens in these stages. First, the connections just start to fray. Maybe calls don't get returned or visits feel really tense. Then, that leads to a growing distance, not just in miles, but emotionally. And finally, you get to the break, which sometimes isn't even a big announcement. It's just the quiet, final step in a very long journey apart.
Which brings us right back to that central, really confusing question. If stepping away finally brings you some peace, some safety, why does it still hurt so much? Where is all that grief coming from?
Well, the answer is in this idea of a quiet grief. It's a name for a very specific type of mourning. You're mourning a loss that is basically invisible to the rest of the world. It's a kind of grief you often have to carry completely on your own.
And it feels so isolating, for a few big reasons. I mean, think about it. There are no funerals for this kind of loss. Nobody sends sympathy cards. You're not just sad about the past, you're grieving a future that you always hoped for, but will never have. And because it's such a complicated mix of sadness and relief, it's almost impossible to explain to people. So you just carry it in silence.
I absolutely love this phrase. It's a grief without a casserole. It just says everything, doesn't it? When there's a death, people show up. They bring food, they know what to do. But when you make the painful choice to save yourself by disconnecting from your family, the casseroles don't show up. There's just no script for it.
Okay, this brings us to what might be the most difficult, and maybe the most important part of this whole thing: how to look at the guilt. That incredibly powerful feeling of guilt that almost always comes with this choice.
Because for so many people, the guilt is the heaviest piece of it all. It's that little voice in your head that just whispers, day in and day out, you were wrong. You should have tried harder. You gave up on them. It can be absolutely relentless.
But here's the thought. What if we've been reading that guilt all wrong? What if it isn't a sign that you made a mistake? What if it's actually pointing to something else entirely?
This is such a game-changing way to see it. Your guilt doesn't mean you're a bad person for leaving. It means you are a person who had so much love, so much connection to offer, and it just didn't have a safe or healthy place to go. The guilt is just the echo of all that love with nowhere to land.
Because really, when you boil it all down, making this kind of choice isn't about rejecting them. It's about finally accepting yourself. It's about saying, my well-being, my safety, my peace, it matters. Sometimes, that's not just a choice, it's a fundamental act of survival.
So, we'll leave you with this to really think on. What would change for you? How might things feel different if you started to see your story not as one of failure, but as the story of someone who, after everything, finally found the profound self-respect to choose themselves?